Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining me at the Lost Begotten fake TV channel of science, where today I am going to turn off the fucking TV so I stop looking up at the screen. And we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about, and you're going to sit there and listen. Basically, how most people, and I mean the vast majority of people right now, including truthers and other conspiracy theorists, have no concept of reality because of an extensive, well thought out campaign basically against the perception of reality itself. This was done by the KGB over the course of the entirety of the last century and a half. Okay? And I know the KGB isn't that old, but the hierarchical structure that the KGB was developed to serve did. And those are the same people that conspiracy theorists might be familiar with as the Khazarian kingdom, but what you would more appropriately term it as is the Khazarian horde. Because this family of what many people know as false Jews, not to be confused with any real Hebraic family, okay? And any real Hebraic family should not be blamed for the actions of these people. Attention, anti-Semite dumbasses. Well, these false Jews have actually been at the center of anything horde related for at least the past 1,000 years. And this goes all the way up through the Cold War and to some things that you probably don't know about, not only about from recent politics and what's going on with Vladimir Putin and everything, but going back throughout the 90s and even 9/11 itself. Okay? These things have all been perpetrated upon us by an ancient, wise, and very powerful empire. Okay? That empire has always existed in the north, is what the old texts that we have say. And let's see, it goes back into the second story in the Bible. Cain, exiled to the land of Nod. Nod, meaning north. Okay? So from the very beginning, the land of the north has been associated with murder. And I'm pretty sure, considering the deception that happened to lead to that murder, and the fact that Cain tried to lie after the fact, deception plays a big part. Well, okay, let me get my coffee here. Okay, so I have like no plan for this video. I don't know how I'm just talking about this crap. But see, what I do most of the time, sometimes I'll write some notes out on a little shitty piece of paper like this. But right now I'm not doing that. I just kind of felt like I had to talk about this, said a prayer, and prepared a little bit in my head. And then when I did my final prayer, the camera went dark just like it just did. I'm like, oh, I guess that means I'm ready. So I hit record. And that's how I've been making my videos lately. Well, a lot of them. Most of them. Let's see. Lights are on the fish tank. Everything's looking pretty. I actually cleaned the glass. Oh my god. So, okay, so where to begin to catch people up, because I know a lot of people watch this, and frankly, even if the Russian people who considered themselves Slavic knew what I was talking about, you really wouldn't be mad at me for trying to tell you, okay? Because this is not a Russophobic thing, okay? And when I say Russians, I'm talking about the country that exists right now that is under control of Vladimir Putin. I'm talking about the army that's being brainwashed and told that they need to liberate the world from us, okay? And that's true. If you're sitting at a desk in Moscow or St. Petersburg right now, you need to realize that out in the country, out in Grozny and shit like that, when they're doing these exercises, they're basically exercising how to liberate the world from evil American imperialism. Okay, and yeah, those are quotes. That's not little bunny fucking foo-foo. Okay. So, all right. So let's start in the 80s, shall we? And to understand what happened in the 80s, you actually need to go back to the 70s, in which one book is all it would take to really understand all of what's going on right now. But the fact that this one book was released in the 70s proves most of what I'm going to claim, okay, and what I have been claiming. And, you know, why I get so many troll thumbs down. Because I seem to be the only person actually willing to take this information into effect when interpreting present day reality. Some people have reported on bits and pieces of this information, but they don't seem to actually comprehend it when perceiving the rest of reality aside from it. Okay? And this is a book written by Soviet Premier Brezhnev, okay, detailing how the Cold War would ultimately be won by utilizing Islamic extremism, fomenting and directing it towards the United States. Okay? And people want to say, no, but the CIA in Afghanistan. Okay, and part and parcel of this strategy, guess what? Was tricking us into this spy versus spy campaign in Afghanistan. Okay? And we fell right into their trap. And part of the reason for that trap was the subsequent media campaign that makes you think exactly what you're thinking right now. So, while I just said the word media, let me recap something right quick. Media is not a format, okay? Technically, definition, word, I know, okay? But let's go back to the original source of that word. Where did it come from? Well, where's the where's the breath that was supposed to support that vocal thing just then? I don't know. Okay, so where's the first place you heard the word media? Your whole life, if you're a Christian. Well, it's in the Bible. And it's an empire that the sons of Heth later established in a big part of the Bible that, let's face it, is pretty freaking hard to read. And there's a reason for that. Because it was the sons of Heth that later became the Midianites, the Philistines, and guess what? The Khazarian false Jews. Okay? This is an empire called media. And their specialty, what they're the best at, has always been total information dominance. They're messengers. Okay? They're false messengers. It's something I've been bitching about for longer than I'm going to talk about in this particular video. 10,000 years. Yeah. So, let's see if I have this. Yes. A cigarette pack with actual cigarettes in it. What a concept. So, now, fast forward to the end of the 80s, back to where I was. We had the whole Afghanistan CIA thing. All right. Some things that you didn't know about the end of the 80s, the Berlin Wall falling, the collapse of the Soviet Union, so supposedly. Okay. First of all, understanding all of this takes knowing one key fact about the Khazarian Medianite Gorgonian royalty. And Gorgonian, that's if you're familiar with mythology, keep this in mind because this actually bears relevance, as silly as it fucking sounds. And I know some shit sounds silly, okay? When you're doing the level of research that I've had to do, you have to get past the silly just to see if something makes sense and people are made to think that it's silly for a reason, okay? This is one of those things, Gorgonian, okay? Because the word later just kind of morphed into Georgian. And I'll get into that in a second. Well, this empire of Khazarian Medianites are the same people that actually gave the first caliphate its printing presses. I had a piece of flint wedged in a broken fingernail. Okay, sorry. So, the printing press was actually used, and this is according to Islamic documents that brag about doing so. Okay, the printing press was actually used in Europe in order to confuse the different burgeoning divisions of Christianity and cause argument among the Catholics. Basically, they said, "Oh look, the Bible. We know the Bible. We can give you Bibles here." And if you're not aware of how, say, retranslating a Bible might be used to cause a little bit of political strife, you should just sit there and focus on breathing because I don't want you to suffocate. And if it starts raining outside, don't look up. Don't look up. You might drown. Okay, moving on. Looking at the fish tanks. Looking at the ashtray. I don't want people to think I'm reading. I'm not reading any of this. Okay, this is what I've come to know is true. All right, and not to toot my own horn, but it seems like I fucking need to or something. Just things are going tragically wrong because people don't fucking listen to me, and that's annoying. But the fact of the matter is, if you were in, say, high school with me, I'd be the guy that you'd want to cheat off of. Okay? If you were unprepared one day for a test, I'd be the guy that you wanted to cheat off of. Depending on whether or not you were an asshole, I might actually let you. But anyways, so this Khazarian media empire, you should at least be able to spot one of the biggest, most obvious, stands out like a sore thumb type prongs of it, okay? And that's Wolf Blitzer's CNN. Okay. Reuters, CNN, Wolf Blitzer's little baby. Okay. Wolf Blitzer being in charge of CNN's programming for the most part. Okay. Wolf Blitzer actually made a speech to, I believe it was a joint session. Okay. Um, I think with Benjamin Netanyahu on the same day. I'm not quite sure about that. But anyways, it was given around the same time frame as Benjamin Netanyahu's address to the joint chambers, right? So what essentially gets played out by both of these people is that the CIA is ineffectual and that CNN is the intelligence service that we should have always wanted to have. CNN was better than the CIA. This is right after the Cold War supposedly ended. Okay. So I'm skipping ahead a little bit too much. But if you look at what happened right before the Cold War, some interesting things happened. See, there was this guy named, what is it, Vladimir Putin? Yeah. And he was working right around this thing they call the Berlin Wall. Okay? And what he was in charge of was actually deceiving via media campaigns large groups of people. Namely, and this was his specialty, was inciting white supremacist groups with fear of things like immigration and, you know, into their religion, the government wanting to suppress them, stuff like that. Oh, yeah, Vladimir Putin in East Berlin in the 80s, doing exactly what seems to be happening on the Shilliverse right now. Alright. So, while we're in Afghanistan trying to use intelligence and arms smuggling, basically, a desperately futile attempt, but somehow works, okay, the Taliban, even though it's kind of propagandized to be made out to be who we're helping, we were actually helping a group called the Mujahideen. Okay, and while the Taliban did absorb a lot of the Mujahideen, that's actually politically a different group. When the Soviets left Afghanistan, there was a political group we supported. That victory lasted about, I think it was 2 weeks. And then the Taliban took over by force. Okay? So we didn't win Afghanistan. They just pulled out the, colonized military and sent in the paramilitary. And they've been running it ever since. Okay? Like this whole idea of the reason why these countries have old Soviet tanks is because they're old Soviet tanks and the Soviet Union just left them lying around. Um, have you ever owned a vehicle? Does it just work forever? Or does it eventually need parts? You think these guys out in the desert got like some kind of mad skills they're hiding? They just fabricate some very sophisticated machined parts. I mean, look, the giganticness of the metal press that it takes just to fabricate some of these things that will wear out over time, okay, makes this idea just completely preposterous and inconceivable. There are very few countries who actually even own one of these gigantic metal presses. All of those countries make cars. Okay, those are the car making countries. If that country doesn't make cars, if you're not an automotive manufacturing country, you can't make fucking tank parts. Period. All right, this is just the way the world works. I'm sorry. Um, and again, you have Brezhnev laying out the whole plan, and then you have what see, like, America, the man's best friend is a dog. In the Middle East, the man's best friend is what is it? AK-47. Well, where the fuck the AK-47s come from, people? Hello. I mean, there's all kinds of little bullshit excuses. Oh, eventually they figured out. Yeah, eventually. Like, as in the mid '90s, after the Cold War ended, they managed to get some weapons manufacturing down there. Okay, but those arms, all the arms, even the arms used in the Irish Army Revolution, okay, came from the Soviet Union. Most of the ones utilized in the Middle East and Africa were shipped through Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. Okay? See, like, this whole idea of Democrat versus Republican really needs to stop. Okay? And we need to kind of focus on what it means to be an American right now. And everything that Russian propaganda is causing mostly the Republican Party lately. Okay, I can't put all the blame on the Republican Party because for decades the Democratic and the liberal type people have been repeating Soviet propaganda. But now for some reason the world is flipped upside down because I'm back. And it's the Republicans who are basically constantly spouting. I mean, nearly 90% of what they say has been programmed into them by the KGB, by Russian propaganda, by Vladimir Putin. Okay? You see, let's go back to the 90s, alright? In the 90s, with the whole Monica Lewinsky thing, alright? We just never suspected, same general area, Putin and Trump just seemed to be able to pick up wives from. Just happens to be where this girl's family's from, and she'd been here. Part of the plan, if you actually read what the Soviet Union's plan was to send people here to have children, which would then sow the seeds of deception and chaos. Okay. Well, I'm just saying, we let someone who falls under this profile take down a United States president, a very successful United States president named Bill Clinton. Okay? And you can get emotional and be angry and judge someone, even though you will be judged yourself. But that's called invoking the spirit. What you're doing is allowing yourself to be demon possessed because you're choosing to judge your fellow man instead of seeing through the word of God that he was your president and commander in chief, and you should have at least taken things he was accused of with a grain of salt. Okay. And are we running out of coffee yet? No, we're not. That's good. Because apparently I'm on a bit of a rant. Alright. So, what's fascinating to me about the Lewinsky scandal is that immediately subsequent to the Lewinsky scandal, what has a huge influence on the current discourse post 9/11, okay, including determining what conspiracy people and truthers would think about 9/11. In 1998, Putin was planning to launch a propaganda machine now known as RT. It's called Russia Today. In addition to this, in this same time frame of the late 90s, 1998 to 99, he also launched and employed this troll army. Okay? So, in addition to the scandal erupting, the American media suddenly, or the American news services, we used to just call them the news, right? Reporters, the press, right? The free press that's very important and vital to this country, which Trump seems to have no respect for, okay? Which will be completely in danger. Like everything about democratic society is in danger from this man. Really, it is. As a conservative, as a Christian, I implore you to open your eyes to this fact. Well, our press, instead of being informed by our citizenry, was being bombarded with false citizens. They were all getting their impression about what the American people felt, even our Congress people. Think about this. Imagine if trolls, you see the ads on TV, call your congressman. This ad was paid for by blah 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 pack. You know, call your congressman and let him know. Call your senator and let him know. What if people in a foreign intelligence office with American accents, with a script on how to pretend to be an American person from an American place, it's not that hard to think out and plan out. What if they'd been calling while Americans are in this cesspool of complacency? They're more active in our politics than we are. Imagine the effects of that. You'd probably wind up with some sort of gridlock in Congress. Hello? You'd probably wind up with some sort of candidate that could capitalize on people's distrust of the government and the media. Well, this happened, folks. This is all real. You can find out about this for yourself. I'm just putting two and two together for you. Okay? Because everybody seems to think it's five, and I'm here to tell you it's four. All right? Oh my goodness. Because the blame Obama shit has got to stop. The blame Hillary shit has got to stop. They have been trying so hard not only to resist this crap, but to inform the American people about this. Because in large part, we didn't know. Because the Bush administration was either in the pocket of Vladimir Putin or was so unaware of it that by the time that they found out, they were fucking embarrassed as shit and thought, if this gets out, the American people will never elect Republicans again. Okay? And this is what I've referred to for a long time as the Pelosi leverage. I think, that's where that kind of works its way in there somewhere. But I've referred to that in previous videos. I'm not trying to get into that right now because it's already, 30 minutes in. Well, let's see. So the sophistication that we've been kind of wondering about as far as the terrorist ability to attack us, it's not that much of a mystery. When you take a step back, stop listening to the talking heads, think about what I just told you. Think about the provable tactical reality of the situation, not the little tabloid headlines. Okay? See, it's actually a proven fact, and you can find Yuri Brezhnev. I think. Yuri Brzezinski. No. Yuri Brezhnev. Brezhnovsky. Okay. There's this guy. He's kind of like he kind of looks like the guy on the Never-Ending Story with the wife and the yeah. Um, but like not 500 years old. And he wears glasses, right? He's kind of got a wide face and a little bit of a goofy grin. Older guy, right? A little bit balding, and he's a former KGB agent, and he divulges all about the entire plan of Illuminati deception. Okay, and what he explains is that the Illuminati conspiracy is used in order to confuse. Okay, it's made for us to have this false idea of a government that doesn't exist so that we can be paranoid of it, essentially in order to make us rebel because of the divide and conquer strategy and its necessities. Okay. I'm getting a little bit tired of talking here. Maybe I need a nap like Hillary Clinton. What the fuck is that? Really? You gonna say she needs naps after speeches? Okay. Just right quick. People like Donald Trump accuse people of what they're guilty of. We can clearly see evidence that Donald Trump takes naps right after his speeches because then he winds up staying up all night tweeting weird shit to people. Okay? And the reason why you stay up all night is because you had a nap in the afternoon. How obvious is that? And you needed me to tell you? Anyway, what was I talking about? Um, I have a kid home from school because of a field trip today, and playing some sort of reef game. I think it's Nemo's Reef. Cute game. I wish they'd read that big old book I bought for him, teach him how to help me with the fish tanks. A little bit off topic. So, shit. The current state of things right now, okay? And the reason why you should know what I'm talking about, but it's the same reason why you don't, okay? The Ukraine conflict showed to people who were paying attention that there were some things about the Cold War that we took for granted, at the very least. And if you really read into it, if you watched Vice News's coverage on Russian, like called Russian Roulette, and watched day to day the progress of the invasion of Crimea and actually what happened on the ground, and saw the way people were treating each other and the media that was trying to, the press, see the fucking media, I hate that. We're programmed to use this fucking word now. It's sickening. The reporters who were trying to cover it and how they were being treated, okay? What you realize is that you have first hand witness of what amounts to the CIA's claims right before your eyes, okay? And what I mean is, if you look historically, most of the reasons why we think of America as like an imperialistic country come from these CIA conspiracies that really nobody with any credibility talks about, but they're perpetuated, especially since the internet, okay? And the reason why they make America look bad in large part is because we don't even bother to believe for a second the story that the CIA tells us. We don't even bother to believe for a second the story that our government tells us. That's a real problem, people. Because that's not, and what I'm here to tell you is I used to think the same thing, okay? I understand. And I'm not in any way being influenced to say what I'm saying. We were all wrong. We were all being led by our fucking noses by a foreign power against our own government. I swear to you, that's the truth. And that's what my channel's about. And I'm gonna leave it there because I'm just fucking, you know, I got a lot to do, and I'm still just kind of waking up. I need to refresh my coffee because it's getting cold, and I got shit to do. I really wish more people would be aware of this and would research this and talk about this, because if you don't, we're all really, really fucked. I mean, like, I don't like to say, the whole we're all gonna die thing, but um, every day that goes by proves me more and more right. Okay? And if you still disagree or think that you know better than me, you need to go back and watch my previous videos. And if you're seeing this after I posted more things, watch the rest of my videos. I've laid out what is happening right now. Okay, I laid it out over a year and a half ago. Okay? And even in my comments, even my responses to trolls, I warned them, okay, by opposing me, by mocking me, by trying to silence me, you are supporting the empire that supports child rapists and slavery. Okay? That's what these people are about. Slavery. They are everything that evil can be. Okay? And they are very good at keeping it all a secret. They're very good at sowing people's divisions against each other. I've warned people that we were headed imminently, and I said, I know it's really hard to see right now, but this is the path towards civil war. This is the path towards divide and conquer. That's where we're going. And it's because of people who support the enslavement of children. Okay? Who support slavery and the possession of children. Okay? And the total objectification of women. Something I warned about. They are the misogynistic horde. I mean, and now all the people who shunned me now support Donald Trump. This is not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that all the flat earth people who I've warned you were misrepresenting things just to mislead you. It's not a coincidence. They all now support Donald the Mongol. Okay? And I mean, look at him, man. He's not a real white person. And I'm not trying to be racist by pointing that out. But for white supremacists to be sitting there voting for basically a Chinese guy painted orange with a raccoon on his head, like, he's not fucking Davy Crockett. I can't even make my fucking head look like his. Okay? He is not at all Caucasian. But white supremacist groups. Like, just think for a second, if you were a Satanist and you pulled that shit off, how giddy it would make you. Because they're Satanists, and they've pulled that shit off. Okay, why is my... Alright. There's a call window coming on my screen here, so I guess I'm going to go ahead and cut this short, or, cut this off. Now that it's been how long since I said I was going to. Oh, stretch. Sorry. Didn't mean to force you into my yawn there. Whew. See, like, when I wake up in the morning, if I film a video, it's like it gets me too relaxed and tired again, and then it's hard for me to get moving again after that. And I'm already starting to run behind on my schedule here, so thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you found this informative and stimulating, and if you're going to spew, do not spew on your computer. Peace.